Hi, this is Fern G. Carr, website www.ferngzcarr.com. Welcome to my Facebook Live reading, Mind, Forms, Part 3, Question and Answer. See, and please, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to type them and I'll go through them. So Rajesh says, useful webinar. Thank you very much, Rajesh. That's very much appreciated. Shirley says, very timely words to describe what's happening in the world. It's true, you know, I mean, poetry, as I've said, poetry it's a reflection of life. So if you can't write about what's happening in the world, you know. Oh, Anna says, I've read all the poems you wrote. It's amazing. Thank you, Anna. That's it's very nice of you to say. Matthew says, excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Just scrolling down here. Shirley says, these are very emotional poems. I can relate to them since there were people in my life who've experienced these disorders. Do you get emotional while writing? You know, that's a good question. Honestly, it just depends on my mood. There was one poem I wrote, and I referred to this in one of my previous themed poetry readings, and it was called Misogyny at its Best, and it was about the mistreatment of women over the years, you know, from Spanish Inquisition, Salem witch trials. And, you know, as I was writing it, I just had tears in my eyes. It was just very emotional. And also, I've written some poems about my girls, my Westies, who've since passed on. And I get very emotional when I was writing those and reading those. But actually, my book is dedicated to my girls, and I do appreciate how they always stayed with me by my side as I wrote my book. Bonnie says, I love how you've organized your works into these themes. Do you sort them after you've written them, or do you have a theme already in mind as you're writing, or perhaps even to create a poem to fit an already existing theme? That is a wonderful question. Thank you. It's a whole host of things. For these particular readings, what I've done was I tried to choose different themes because I already had some of my themed work on the internet, and I wanted to have a bit of variety. So, and then for the most part, not necessarily the case today, but I tried to pair them with, you know, serious versus fairly upbeat. But when I'm writing my poetry, sometimes, you know, there'll be a call for submissions to a particular journal or anthology that I would like to get into. And so then, you know, I might compose a poem specifically for that journal. But I've written hundreds and hundreds of poems. I've written easily over 600 poems, 700, whatever. And you know, it's just whatever pops into my mind. That's what I write. I try not to get too bogged down into, oh, am I going to write a ghazal today, or am I going to write a themed poem about X, Y, Z? I just do what I feel like doing. So for the echo poem, it's a little bit hard to see. Now, Shirley wants me to see if I can show that to you. I'll try. I'll go to my notes here, just flip through the notes, and just, okay. It basically, it's kind of tough to see, but it basically looks like this. It's hard to do. This is like looking in a mirror, you know, it takes a little bit of spatial reasoning when I do this. Okay, and Matthew says, does it take you longer to write the very emotionally charged poems? You know, sometimes they just come out. I remember writing a poem on an airplane after about a visit to a relative in a personal care home, and you know, that poem just went, and it was very emotionally charged, but I wrote it like that because the words just had to come out, basically. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, he says, amazing world, but changed. Surely I'm traumatized just hearing your poem. Was this a real incident that happened at that particular crosswalk? No. Now you see, that's something. There was, I can't remember the name of the publication exactly, but it was a publication that was based on, I think it was called Crosswords, and they had a contest, and they wanted you to invent some kind of crossword type poetry. So that's what I did. And basically, I was just trying to think of what type of scenario would lend itself to increasingly high digits, you know, like starting off with a 1 and then going all the way up to a 24. And that's what I came up with. It actually got honorable mention in that contest. And oh, and Mike said, thank you, Mike, amazing in different languages. And Shirley asks if I have a favorite poetry form. You know, I wouldn't say necessarily that I have. I mean, I have all different types of things. I did one poem where it was very alliterative, and I used every word of the, every letter of the alphabet in, like I had a line with all A's, a line with all B's, a line with all the way to Z. And with the exception of a couple of little prepositions and conjunctions in between. That one was very tricky to write. Anna says, I love your poems in Chinese. 谢谢. Thank you. Shirley, very enjoyable themes today. Thank you. Jay says, when will I get my sense of self back? I guess, you know, that's a question, you know, relating to the mind component of this reading. And hopefully, you know, once the pandemic is over, people will start feeling better. Mike said Shards of Crystal is my favorite. Thank you. That's my book there. Oh, and Jay just mentions that, sorry, he thought that this was a different session. Anyway, if there are any other questions, Lisa, thank you very much. She said that she enjoyed my poems. And I do want to thank everyone really for having taken the time to join me and share something that's very near and dear to me. And I basically hope that you continue to have a love of poetry and enjoy poetry, and whether it's mine or somebody else's, it doesn't matter, because poetry is music, poetry is life, poetry is art. And on that note, I'll say goodbye, thank you, stay safe, stay well. It's been a real pleasure. Bye. Acknowledgements. Part 3 is an excerpt from the original full video, which was kindly sponsored by the League of Canadian Poets and the Canada Council for the Arts. Thanks very much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like, and please be sure to subscribe. For more poetry, my book Shards of Crystal is available on Amazon. Thanks again, and stay tuned for a new video every Wednesday.